Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaii are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live and work. Getting to know the candidates vying for a seat at the state capitol. In the race for State Senate District 22, the Republican primary features two community leaders looking to serve Leeward Oʻahu in a new way. And on Hawaii Island, a county council member and a community activist face off in the race for House District 2, which covers much of Hilo. With no other candidates, the winner of this Democratic primary will win the seat. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. Tonight we're speaking to candidates seeking a seat in the state legislature. First, we are joined by Republican candidates for State Senate District 22. It's a huge district covering nearly all of Leeward Oʻahu from Ko'olina to Kaʻana Point. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii YouTube page. Now to our guests. Samantha DeCorte is a Maʻili resident and chair of the Nānākuli Maʻili Neighborhood Board. She is also a member of the Neighborhood Security Watch. She currently serves as Chief of Staff for Hawaii State Senator Brenton Awa. And joining us via Zoom, Teri Kia Savaiinaea has lived in Waiʻanae for the last 26 years. She is a graduate of the Hilo nursing program and has worked in various jobs in the healthcare industry. She currently serves as a board member of the Boys and Girls Club Hawaii Waiʻanae Clubhouse. And since I messed up your name, Teri Savaiinaea, I will go to you first. Tell us a little about yourself and why you decided to run, and what you think is the most important thing for folks there on the Waiʻanae coast.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So my name is Teri Kia Savaiinaea. Yes, I am a resident of Waiʻanae, total 26 years. I moved out here when I was in high school, and then I went to Waiʻanae High School, but because I already had my colors for Farrington, I had to transfer back to Farrington just to walk. So I am under graduation list at Waiʻanae High School in class of '88. So I'm running for office because I've been out here for long enough to know that there's so much issues out here. It's not getting easier, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So it's time to take a stand. I'm tenacious, I'm a go-getter, I'm just all about getting things done. And I believe I have that leadership to get things done and make sure that the people's voices are heard, because I'm running a grassroots.
Okay, thank you, Teri Savaiinaea. Got it right that time, right? Samantha DeCorte, please tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Great, Daryl, good to see you again. So Samantha DeCorte, and basically I'm running because I'm the kind of leader that leads by example. I like to let my work speak for itself. Currently I serve as the Nānākuli Maʻili Neighborhood Board Chair, very active in my community. I also serve, as you mentioned in the introduction, as Chief of Staff for Senator Awa. So I bring the experience that is needed, I bring the passion and ambition that is needed, but most importantly, the leadership skills. And so I'm excited to be here.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing your side of the coast? What would you push for hardest at the legislature?
Hands down, public safety. I mean, crime is continually on the rise on the Waiʻanae coast. I mean, it's just gotten so out of control. We have kids killing kids in the middle of the street, in the middle of the day. We have game rooms popping up. I mean, the crime is relentless, and it does not seem to be decreasing. It only seems to be amplified. So in going door to door in my community, they're afraid. Kupunas, they're afraid.
You know, Teri Kia Savaiinaea, what is your solution? What would your solution be to the crime situation? I think that a lot of people there would agree that that's a major issue. What do you think needs to be done?
You know, we have to enhance community policing efforts and invest in the youth in programs to reduce crime rates and promote safer neighborhoods, like the Neighborhood Security Watch. I just had Matt Tanay come out to Mākaha and do a Neighborhood Security Watch presentation because we need not just the police, we cannot always depend on them So we have to, not be vigilantes, but we have to be out there, be active, be seen by those people who are doing things, not right, nefarious, like these game rooms. They're right down the road of my house. There's 3 of them. I've been going door knocking, and yeah, they're right down the road from my house.
Samantha DeCorte, crime, what do you see as the solution there?
So we've got to complete the Waiʻanae police station. Now, most people will tell you, well, that's a city issue, Sam, so you should let the city council deal with that. But when you're talking about day-to-day survival down in Waiʻanae, it has to be a all-community, all-government issue. And right now, the priority is to complete the station, fill the vacancy, 400 officer vacancy, but we've got to get more patrol officers on the street patrolling.
One of the issues when you talk about a police station, one of the issues out there has always been the physical plant, the infrastructure, the roads, so on. Many people on the coast feel like they've been neglected for many years. Is that something that as a Republican you can fix in the state Senate? Because it just seems like you'd be so outnumbered.
Yeah, so the feeling is not a feeling of neglect, it's a fact. Waiʻanae is the most underserved district in the state of Hawaii, and that's clear. When you drive down Farrington Highway, we're one way in, one way out. We have the most landfills on our side of the island. Our houseless community is growing in numbers, and so the data speaks for itself. We are neglected out there.
But I mean, as a Republican, how do you get the stuff you need out of the legislature that's so dominated by Democrats?
Yeah, so in working for in the legislature with a Republican state senator, I mean, it really comes down to basically leveraging the seat. I mean, as a state senator, we build good relationships with the department leads, with the department heads, and it really is about getting the resources done through the departments.
Teri Savaiinaea, what do you think is the trick to getting stuff out of the legislature when you'll be operating from a minority if you get elected?
You got to learn how to play in the sandbox. So it means that if, it is what it is. You cannot be like, well, I'm a Republican and not work with the Democrats. Because if you don't have that synergy and working together, things are not going to get done. So you just got to know how to play in the sandbox and work together. And then when you go home, you can be like, and you can hash it out in your own time. But when you're at work, everything must be professional, straight up, and get the job done.
In this highly partisan environment we're in this country, it's I don't know whether it's better or worse in Hawaii because we're basically so dominated by one party. But Teri, I'm curious as to how do you feel that with the presidential race featuring Trump and Biden most likely, how does that play out in a state Senate race? Do you have to take sides? Do you find yourself having to defend former President Trump and like that when you deal with people in your district?
Never. I've never had that. It was very interesting. If I get it, when I do get asked, I tell the truth and I just say, look, yes, of course I'm a Republican, support Trump. The thing is that's the best option right now. Is Trump.
Can you say anything positive?
Straight up. What is that?
Do you feel like you could say something positive about him as opposed to, oh, he's my only choice?
Well, it's not just so much he's the only choice, like he's the Republican, he's the pick. And so for him, he gets the job done. Yeah, a lot of people don't like his Twitter posts and what he has to say, but getting the job done is the most important thing, and we're not working with feelings and emotions. It's about saving this country and getting us back on track and making it about we, the people.
Samantha DeCorte, do you see the presidential election playing a role at all in your effort to get elected?
To be honest, Daryl, the presidential election really has not a lot of weight in our community because the next president who will be elected will not complete the Waiʻanae police station. The next president elected will not get the 30,000 waitlisters off of our homestead list onto their homes. So to be honest, it doesn't really have any bearing. If we were running for U.S. Senate, then yes, it would probably merit a little bit more conversation. But at this point, we're running for state, and we're running specifically to bring resources to our community.
Tell me, how do you campaign out there? What's the best way to get people to vote for you?
You just got to do the work. I mean, and that's the truth, and that's the fact of the matter is a community and public, they want to see legislators, they want to see their lawmakers actually doing the work. There is a narrative, and it's been perpetuated by lawmakers that they only only come out during campaign season. You've heard this, I've heard this, Teri has heard this, and it's been proven time and time again. We only see lawmakers come out during election season. So I am shifting that trend by doing the work, very hands-on, being in my community, being consistent and being committed to that physical presence.
Teri Savaiinaea, what is your method for campaigning? How are you trying to get votes?
Mine is grassroots. Boots on the ground. Been walking the district, talking to the people, handing out my walking cards. I'm at the store. I'm out and about in the community. I'm wearing my campaign hat, my campaign T-shirt, and people are like, "Oh, you're running for office?" I mean, a lot of people in the community know me, and they're just like, "Wow, I didn't know you was running for office." Like, "Where's your signs?" I said, "You know what? It's not about signs and banners. It's about talking to the people, getting out there and socializing."
What are they telling you when you ask them what they want?
Yep, they're afraid. Just like Samantha said, they're afraid. I asked them, "Isn't traffic, a problem for you?" They're like, "You know what? Most of them, they've lived on this side so long, like 20, 30 years. They said, you know what? That's not important right now, traffic. The most important thing is public safety. There's stabbings, there's shootings, there's game rooms." They're like, "That has to stop. We need help."
What are you also hearing from voters? The same thing?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll have to move on to the next priority, which is cost of living. Housing is a major issue in our community, not just statewide, but I mean, we on the Waiʻanae coast has been a little more affordable as far as the housing is concerned. When the market starts to go up, Waiʻanae usually trends to follow behind last, but now we're seeing homes in Waiʻanae sell for $1 million. So this is really taking us locals out of the market that should only really be for locals.
Teri Savaiinaea, what do you think is the solution to housing costs, particularly as it relates to your coast? One of the things that's happened this last year was the counties were given the ability to crack down more on short-term vacation rentals, for example. I know that in some places on the Waiʻanae coast, that is an issue. You have short-term rentals out there. Do you think that will help? What do you think is the key to getting more people into housing on your side?
Well, I mean, they're building all these expensive houses. That's not what we need out here. We need housing that is affordable for people. We got to develop initiatives for affordable housing, such as including transitional housing too, and supportive services. We cannot just keep on going to the beach and doing sweeps and sweeps because the next day they come right back. That is not working. We got to address the homelessness and the housing insecurity, like pronto.
What do you see as the solution to the homeless issue out there?
When I used to work in crisis, I used to work for Care Hawaii. I was a crisis outreach counselor. People actually tell me they're being pushed out this side. When I come and outreach on this side, it was phenomenal. I would outreach at the beach, like at night. I did the 7P to 7A. It was dangerous out there, but they're moving people. I asked them, "Where do you come from?" Chinatown. "Where do you come from?" Missouri, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. They're being moved here.
So what do you do about it then?
The government needs to get them back to where they came from, but then also, if, we can't force them, but we need to find a way to have their state that sent them here to pay for them, because it's breaking our economy with having to take care of other states, especially mental health. I outreach a lot of mental health because I was outreaching some homicidal and suicidal people. So a lot come from the mainland. You'd be surprised.
Samantha, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I want to bring the conversation back to housing because it's such an important topic. But this year in the legislature, there was a bill that was introduced to prevent foreigners from purchasing here in Hawaii. It passed the Senate. It didn't pass the House for political reasons. We have to really prioritize and target the market to stay local market. And by restricting foreigners to purchase land here in Hawaii, it will help to alleviate some of that cost.
Can you even do that, though?
Yes, we can. If you ask the Attorney General, she will say that it's unconstitutional. But there were 41 states that have some sort of foreign restrictions on purchasing. So I would have to argue with the Attorney General to say that there is a way that we can put some kind of restrictions on foreigners.
When you talk about foreigners, are you talking about foreigners and I have had this conversation with your boss. Are you talking about foreigners like foreigners from other countries, or foreigners like foreigners from the continent?
No, foreigners from other countries.
Okay, it's a little bit more specific.
Just to be clear, yes.
You know, I have another question that came in here. The homesteads are very important on the coast. You have a lot of them, and long-time homesteads, large homestead developments. Ken from email writes, do you approve of spending hundreds of millions of dollars of government money for programs that give benefits only to people of one particular race? That sounds like the homeless program. You know, just to honor our viewers, I'd like to put that question to you. Teri, is Homelands at all divisive in your district, or is it widely supported? And are you concerned about this issue that Ken raises about aiding one race over others?
Aiding one race over others. Well, for Native Hawaiians, there's a lot of land that belongs to us and ceded land that the government is utilizing, and they're not paying their fair share back to us. So it's not that they're giving us handouts. They owe us that money because they're using our lands. So I don't see it as being one-sided and helping only one race or one ethnicity over the other, because this is our land. We have a lot of land that belong to us that not just the government is using, but even other entities.
Samantha,
and they need to pay us.
Samantha, do you want to comment on that? I mean, Ken's question.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say that Senate District 22 is the largest Native Hawaiian homestead population in the state, if not in the world. And the next senator has got to prioritize homesteaders. We have a continual growing of homesteaders dying on a list. It's been over about 100 years since the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act passed, and we've only released about 9,000-ish leases. So something is wrong with the system. Something needs to change. But as far as Ken's question, this is federal law. It was passed over 100 years ago, and we need to honor that. And
it's, anyway, I'm going to move on. Henry from McCully, what are your goals on Makua Valley? Teri Savaiinaea, you brought up the fact that there's land issues like this. What do you think should happen to Makua Valley? Makua Valley, of course, is basically leased to the military. They use it for training. They've stopped bombing it. They've stopped using live ammunition, but it's still under the control of the military, and they insist that that's a training area that they need to keep. How do you feel about that, and do you feel like Makua Valley is something that should come back to the people?
Yes, I believe Makua needs to be returned to the people, and not just returned to the people like, here's your land, there you go. There needs to be a lot of cleanup, because there's a lot of live ordinance that's there, and it'll be dangerous for our peoples, especially when they go out and they do their gathering. You don't want them to step on a live ordinance and get blown up. So the land's got to get cleaned up, not just handed back.
Do you see a use for it?
Yes, I see a use for it.
What would the use be?
If they clean up the land properly, I believe that can be a gateway for us to have more homes. We can stretch out and open homestead. We need to get our Hawaiians off the list. My mom's been dead for over 30 years, and my sister is the beneficiary. Her name just came up within the last 2 years. That's a long time. Yes. And she passed away, so now it's hers. But she still has to do the process of the paperwork, getting the monies, and yeah.
Samantha, your thoughts about Makua Valley?
Yeah, I mean, the military has come out and they have admit that they haven't used Makua for over 25 years for live fire shooting, yet they are in the process of renewing its lease. So they're not using it. They need to give it back to the people, but before they do, they have to spend the money to recover the land, even in the ocean. I mean, we have undetonated bombs that are still in these lands. So to be honest, it cannot be used for ag, it cannot be used for housing, because the land has been so contaminated. So again, this is a critical time for the next senator, is to be able to address these issues. And for me, I will absolutely not allow military to go into another lease in 2029. When their time is up, their time is up.
Samantha, I'll turn this question to you. It is a traffic question from Facebook. It's been an ongoing issue with traffic headed in and out of the coast. What is your resolution to fix traffic on the coast?
So the quick answer to that is open up Pa'akea Road. We do have areas and back roads in Waiʻanae that will help to relieve a lot of the traffic. There's also Kole Kole Pass. It's a little more complicated. It's going to cost about $1 billion to open that road back up again. But I would say the quick fix on relieving traffic now is to open up Pa'akea Road. We're close to it though, so I think we're going to get there.
That's mostly for an alternative route, right? That you're talking about, those routes.
No, I'm requesting that it be for 24/7 use.
Okay, and so, so Teri, what about traffic? And you said that people aren't asking you much about that, but it still is an issue, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. It is an issue, but it's like their second, most of them is that their second and third, but the primary one is the public safety. So yes, traffic is a problem. I mean, I go through it every day, in and out. My family, all of them work outside of Waiʻanae, and so it's the worst time is between like 4:30 and 6 o'clock. It's like, come on, we got to get home.
Yeah. And Daryl, just to add to that, I mean, not only is it a burden that we're spending 2 hours going into Waiʻanae just to get home, but also it's a safety hazard. We're one way in, one way out. We're the only district in the state that literally is one way in and one way out. And we have had to deal with fires, we've had to deal with tsunamis, we've had to deal with uncontrollable or unmanageable weather conditions. And so not just is it a burden and it takes a long time to get home, but we have to think about the livelihood, just like how it was in Lahaina, that we have to really take in those things in consideration. So kind of just touching up real quick, and you can get to your question, but also with the fire hazards. I mean, we are a huge fire risk. We're the driest parts of the island. UH itself has studies proving that Waiʻanae is the next Lahaina, and what are we going to do about that? Right now, I don't see any big moves happening, but we've got to get another access route to save our residents from something like that to happen.
Teri Savaiinaea, what do you think about that issue, about the access and the fire safety? Is that a concern for you as well?
Oh, yes. I was working at Waiʻanae Comprehensive when that fire came over the mountain. I live on the opposite side of the mountain. The fire already went over the mountain, and it went on the Waiʻanae Coast Comprehensive hillside, and they were afraid because it was coming down to our buildings, and the fire was very thick. So, you know, it's dangerous. And I mean, even though they do fire break and everything, it'll just rip through, especially there's so much dry brush. It is a concern.
You know, this is a question I got from a viewer on email mentioning Puhonua o Waiʻanae with Twinkle Burgess, you know, sort of a leader of the homeless community out there. And they organized, and they actually managed to get a hold of some property. Samantha, do you think that ultimately that might be kind of a solution for homelessness, that kind of cooperative, but when you give someone property, then the people next door aren't happy about it?
Sure, of course. I mean, it's the concept of not in my backyard, right? But I think that everybody has to bring their ideas and solution to the table. I mean, we don't have time, we don't have resources, we don't have room on our beaches to continue to, or our public spaces to continue to house our houselessness. So what they're doing is great, and we need to add to that as well. So there's not one way, and it has to be this way. I think everybody doing their part will help.
Teri, I'm sorry. How do you feel about these homeless villages being developed like that?
I mean, if that's a way to help. I mean, they're doing something. They're not just sitting around. And it's great that it's being moved away from the beach, because we all need to be real that when there's a tsunami or there's a bad storm, those homeless people are going to die. They're going to be wiped out. So public safety, we need to get them off the beaches into housing away from the water line. It's dangerous.
Yeah, and not only that, but we have to get our city parks and beaches back. I mean, I'm not sure when the last time you were down there, but it's just like completely flooded. Now the city has made efforts to continue to move and, you know, help them get off and off the beaches and into, you know, a little bit more stable conditions. But we've got to do something, you know?
You know, it occurs to me that one thing we haven't mentioned yet is that whichever one of you wins this primary election is going to face a fairly formidable Democrat, probably, because there's a primary there too. How do you, Teri Savaiinaea, what's your argument about why you should elect a Republican in that district versus a Democrat, or, you know, how do you win the general election in a state that's so dominated by Democrats?
I believe we can win this. Republicans are gonna sweep. I mean, I just know it. I feel it. They're strong candidates. I'm the candidate recruitment and training for the Republican Party, and there's a lot of candidates that came through my training. They're solid. They're strong. They have the desire, the tenacity. They want to win this. They're in it to win it. And both of us, Samantha and I, we're in it to win it no matter what. So as the next senator, I will make sure that we're all working cohesively as a team, you know, whether it's Samantha or myself, it doesn't matter to me, because I want to make sure we become, you know, strong, tight, and we win. Republicans, there's a lot of Republicans in the district. They just don't vote, and we got to spark them. We got to get that flame under them and say, come on, let's go. Oh, but my vote don't matter. Yes, it matters. Every vote matters.
Samantha, same question to you. I mean, how do you win? And do you really feel that there is, as Teri is saying, a movement toward more Republican people out of the coast? We know what we saw in the Eva Plain. Quite a few Republican candidates won last election.
Yeah. So as you know, I know you're following my race in 2022. When I first ran for state senate, I was 40 votes short from that race. Now, that's pretty impressive considering I've never been elected to a political office, but it came down to the hard work. So I don't want to credit that to a party. I want to credit it to the candidate, because it's going to take hard work. I've had Republicans and Democrats vote for me because I continue to show up and do the work. And now since then, my former opponent has now resigned. She is now retired. But I don't think Waiʻanae is enamored or influenced by the political gestures of, I don't think. Not
about the R and the D.
I don't, we are suffering in so many areas that we don't have time to play politics.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank both of our guests, Republican candidates for Senate District 22, Samantha DeCorte and Teri Kia Savaiinaea. As we get ready for our next segment featuring State House District 2, please enjoy this Hiki no story. It was produced by students at Waiʻanae High School and focuses on something impacting many of us, inflation.
Eggs, bread, milk, rice, and produce are only few of the many staple foods experiencing drastic price changes due to inflation here at the Waiʻanae store, a local grocer in Waiʻanae.
Local eggs are they're fairly stable in cost.
For the past few years, Kit Okimoto and his team strive to achieve one goal.
Good morning. To provide as much of the grocery needs to our community as possible. But in the end, if the costs stay high, we can't absorb all of it for a long time. So we end up passing it on slowly to the consumers.
According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, food prices had a 5.3% increase over the past year. Although it's decreased from early 2022, the effects remain.
We used to eat a lot of vegetables, you know, lettuce, bell peppers. Everything has just gone up so much.
Say within maybe a week, it could have shot up to $1 more. So you kind of steer away from that.
And we don't want our customers to get sticker shock, and we don't want them to get the wrong idea that prices are going up so much and why aren't we doing anything to control it.
The Waiʻanae community is considered a food desert with only 2 grocers and a small handful of farms.
$2.17.
Okay. The impact of inflation has only made it worse.
Our prices has not increased a whole lot, but it definitely increased just enough so that we were able to still sell affordable local organic produce, but also be able to keep up with the cost of production.
We try to negotiate better deals, to offer better advertised promotions. We've also done our best to diversify our supply network.
Despite inflation, it all comes back to the same goal: providing good food for the community.
We do believe in keeping our community healthy and being able for them to afford healthier.
We're very cognizant that consumers are on a tight budget, often on fixed incomes, but we also want to make sure that they can buy the food they need to nourish their families.
This is Denise Cabrera from Waiʻanae High School for Hiki No on PBS Hawaii.
Aloha and welcome back to Insights on PBS Hawaii. We now turn our attention to the race for State House District 2. The district covers much of Hilo, and in this race, there are only two candidates, and both are from the Democratic Party, so the winner in the primary election will take the seat. Let's meet our guest. Susan Lee Loy currently serves on the Hawaii County Council. She was first elected to the council in 2016. Before her time in office, she worked in land use development, environmental permits, and long-range community planning. Tanya Yamanaka Aynessazian has worked with the East Hawaii nonprofits for over 20 years, including Bay Clinic, Arc of Hilo, and Volcano Art Center. For the last 10 years, she's been the business manager at Hawaii Island Adult Care. Let me start with you, Tanya Yamanaka Aynessazian. It's quite a name. What made you decide to run for office?
Well, the state had a $1.67 billion surplus last year, and I thought, what could have been done that wasn't done with that level of surplus, and the schools are deteriorating. We've got people struggling, and you can just look around, and when you see a bigger potential, because there's so much talent and expertise in our town, you just look around, kind of determine what role you can play, and you go for it. In the business of caring at Hawaii Island Adult Care, I'm an administrator, but I was also, responsible for the financial viability, but employment, satisfaction, program outcomes. I'm a social visionary. I like to look at things from a systemic point of view and make things better for everyone. I mean, it's kind of what I'm good at. And my former employees are the hardest working coworkers and friends, dedicated, hardworking, and they're very indicative of all the hardworking people in Hilo. So.
Let me give Susan Lee Loy a chance. Now, you were termed out as a council member. What made you decide to run for the state legislature? The seat opened up.
The seat opened up. Really, I just love where I grew up. Hilo is where I went to all the public schools, the universities. I've been working in the district my entire life. And really, I look at our young kids and I really want them to see leaders like myself and Tanya that they can aspire to, and they can serve in leadership roles, and we have spaces for them, whether they're in school now, they go away to college and they can come back, but we want them to come back because we need our local families home here in Hawaii.
What do you do about that? How do you change things so that that'll happen?
Well, definitely, I think economy is one key factor that, especially in Hilo. Hilo is the business district of the island. We have the University of Hawaii at Hilo. We have Haleʻolelo, which is our Hawaiian language college. I think there's key places within the Hilo district that can serve as economic hubs. I also think the work that we've done on the county council to engage youth civic engagement through our youth commission really starts to prepare our youth to engage government early and determine a future that they can come home to.
Tanya Yamanaka Aynessazian, I heard you agreeing about the economy. What kind of things would you like to see happen? Because it's still kind of like there's hardly any, they don't fly that many planes into Hilo. It's quieter. It's not like the west side that's got so much tourists.
Right. Well, I mean, tourism is based on caring for others, and but it's based on caring for visitors. And there's a whole other economy that's based on caring for ourselves, caring for each other, caring for Hawaii. And, our local caring economy includes parents, grandparents, CNAs, personal assistants, janitors. I mean, everybody is actually a caregiver in some way, and to invest more into our healthcare system, because that is the #1 issue in our district. I think access to specialists. So many times you have to fly over here to Oʻahu to see the doctors that you need. And when you look at the aging of our district, there's a lot of caregivers, a lot of kupuna, a lot of seniors that need help and assistance. And when you can't get that immediate specialist care, we're competing for the same doctors. Everyone, Hilo's small, and it's really hard to recruit sometimes and keep people there. And caring is like the most honorable thing you can do, caring for others. Sue Lee Loy knows this.
Do you feel, Susan Lee Loy, that healthcare could be a way of, is it a big issue there? I know that it's a big issue there, but that's a statewide issue, though, to a certain extent. And what would you see to improve our healthcare system in this state?
Yeah, absolutely. Healthcare is definitely a need. I think what Hawaii Island, specifically Hilo, offers is an opportunity to actually access housing where we can actually provide healthcare workers that can kind of be mobile from Hawaii Island to other islands that are just higher costs of living, especially housing. I think the other piece that we really appreciate in Hilo is the network. We have deep roots in the community, generations of families that really rely and help each other out. And to the point of caregiving, that's what we're based in. This next year in 2025, we will have 3 generations, our baby boomers, our Generation X, and our Generation Y, all at 55 and older. So we really need to start looking out on how do we care for our kupuna with care, but also housing opportunities.
You know, that's a really interesting point, because Hilo is a very stable community, and you do have the need to generations caring for generations, often in the same properties. What do you see as the gaps there, Tanya?
I think one of the gaps is we need more awareness of that entry-level caregiver. You know, so if we can introduce more high school students, more college students to the entry-level healthcare workers, you know, so when you're a CNA or when you're, you know, caring for elderly, or you are driving the elderly around or preparing, you know, doing any kind of small jobs, that is an entry level for them to see the bigger picture of healthcare and how can they, because we need to grow our own, you know, in Hilo too. We need more doctors in Hilo. And we can provide like certification in caregiving. We can work with HCC, you know, so we can do better. You know, I've actually have a 360-degree view of our state's healthcare system, because I've been a consumer of Bay Clinic. I've also been on the board for 10 years, about 10 years ago. I've worked for Aloha Care, so I have the payer perspective. I've been a provider at Hawaii Island Adult Care and the Arc of Hilo. So I'm a consumer of services, and I understand the Medicaid and Medicare network. And that's really important, you know, to have that 360-degree view to see, like, where are the gaps?
Okay, I need to keep moving on. So one of the issues on the Big Island, too, is the volcano and the natural disasters. I mean, time and time again, we've seen the Big Island taking the brunt of a hurricane that's coming, or volcanoes and so on. Are you prepared? Is the state prepared? And after what we suffered through on Maui with the fire, do you worry about preparation? And is the Big Island and the state and the county, are they prepared for the next disaster on the Big Island?
You know, that's what keeps me up at night, Daryl. Come August, we'll be walking into the 1-year anniversary of Maui, and I've had the opportunity to work with people in California that suffered from Paradise fires. One, they reached out and they provided a lot of respite to our first responders. They sent firefighters, they sent police officers. Hawaii Island itself lended a lot of our own employees to help Maui walk through all the different things that needed to happen for FEMA.
Of course, everyone's forgotten that you guys had fires that same day.
That same day. And actually what I've learned now, and talking to our friends on the mainland after Paradise, is the exodus of our insurance companies. That is what's going to keep me up at night, and the work that I really want to take on at the state. We are seeing insurance rates go up incredibly high, or a mass exodus. Seen it happen in California. There's some tools out there that they've lent, and I really want to begin to explore that, because that's the only way we'll be able to keep people home, is if they can stay in their homes and not to have to pay exorbitant insurance rates.
And just to add to that, I mean, there's the business insurance too. You know, I mean, just at Hawaii Island Adult Care, the insurance rates went up significantly, and it's a hard thing to juggle.
What kind of insurance specifically?
Property insurance, fire insurance.
Oh, property and fire, okay.
Yeah.
So it went. So yeah. So it's a damper on the entire economy. There was a legislative proposal for that, and it was kind of based on the original the hurricane fund that we had set up years ago. Do you think that we need to have something like that Tanya?
Very possibly. I mean, you know, I think we do need to dive into this really, because I think Maui fires kind of enlightened us on a lot of different areas. And, you know, I'm not an insurance expert, but I definitely think we need to look at this and see how we can best cover everyone, because the exodus from Maui has been scary. And we did have an exodus from Puna as well, which is, it's sad because people want to stay here.
Is that because there's no jobs?
I think it's a lack of understanding too, that, you know, if we can help people understand that they can create their own jobs. There's a lot of need. There's a lot of ways that we can help the entrepreneurial spirit here.
There's work
there's work to be done, you know, but it's a matter of sometimes it's not a job that's already made.
Is that something for the government to do?
Well, I think for us, especially in Hawaii County, some of the things and the lessons that we learned from California was not only what to do with our insurance rates and maybe creating an insurance fund like we did for Kauai, but also some fire-wise programs. Hawaii County has introduced many programs and a lot of funding into our first responders so that we actually have the response that's necessary should future disasters happen. And we want to be able to demonstrate that the work that we've done in that area makes us less at risk, which then puts us in a better portfolio for our insurance companies to insure. And I think with the backing of a funding like we did for Kauai, it helps insurance carriers kind of step back in and say, hey, there's a lot of partners in this to make sure our families can stay in their homes.
Let me ask, and I'll start with you, Tanya. Yamanaka, Aynessazian. I want to say people's names because it will be on the ballot, even though I wish I could shorten it, no offense. But what other issues are people, when you go campaigning, what other things are people saying you need to address?
Education. I think education is really important. I'm hearing a lot about that, but I also hear a lot about government accountability. You know, that's really important because when you look at our state constitution's preamble, you know, it states that we, the people of Hawaii, are grateful for divine guidance and mindfulness of our Hawaiian heritage. And, you know, I don't think that people really understand that the preamble to our state constitution is the intention that we have set for how we govern ourselves. And so, you know, I think another big problem is that there's just less and less people involved. And so
let me ask, just to clarify, when you say government accountability, do you feel like the government is corrupt and needs to be?
No, I think that we forget the values that we've set forth for us to be accountable to ourselves. Because, you know, I was just talking to Sue about this, you know, people will say, oh, the government doesn't do this or the government doesn't do that. But the government is made up of our friends and neighbors and people. So we need to be accountable to ourselves in what we've, you know, set forth.
Do you feel like the people hold the government accountable enough here? You guys are running in basically an open seat. No Republicans even showed up to file. I mean, do people care about politics? You know, or is there enough interest to keep politicians, you know, straight?
I do think so. I think, again, Hilo and the district that we're running for is actually very unique. There's a lot of partnerships, a lot of generational families. They want our families to succeed. And so they're able to lean in on politicians, on legislative matters that help transform the community that they want to live and stay in. I think housing continues to be something that is an issue across the state. I think we need to pull together a toolbox of many different housing product types.
What's the housing issue in Hilo? Because people always picture Hilo as being, oh, there's plenty of room. You know, the houses are, you know, there's plenty of room. There's Puna. There's lots of places to build houses over there. Do you have a housing problem in Hilo?
We absolutely do. And I think urban sprawl really kind of caught us by surprise. It was a great opportunity to get really affordable housing, but now it's really talking about the infrastructure, whether it's transportation, whether it's services in the district like Puna, whether it's fire stations, whether it's an ambulance traveling from Puna to our Hilo hospital. I mean, basically Puna is the size of our islands combined. And if we only have a few first responders, ambulances, and services in those districts, it's the travel. It really is the travel. And so to provide housing through infill, closer to services, I think is really a goal for us in Hawaii County.
Tanya, Aynessazian, do you agree with that?
I do. I also think we just need more responsible development, and we need to really look at our infrastructure. You know, we need proper infrastructure for our boating and fishing communities. We need responsible development of, you know, Waiʻanae. We need. We have the cesspool issue, you know, like we've got, I think, 55% of the cesspools that need to be converted are on Hawaii Island, you know, and is septic the right answer? And certainly, because septic's probably going to be an outgoing technology in the next couple of decades.
So what is, I mean, they did have, there was a legislative proposal there on the table. I think that Hawaii County supported it, and it would have been essentially a fee that people would apply, and it could generate money that would then help them convert. Would you have supported that?
Yeah, absolutely. But we need some more subsidies, because this is an expensive conversion that people are going to have to do. You know what I mean? So we're going to need more state assistance. We're going to need to find more grants, or, you know, find a way to raise revenues in order to do that, because I don't think everyone's going to be able to afford to do it. And then what's going to happen is they're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a major issue for your island, and what do you see as the solution?
Absolutely. But I also think we need to lean into the bipartisan infrastructure bill and put some of those projects up front. I think there is opportunities.
So adding sewers as opposed to just converting to some other technology.
Absolutely. And really get in front of our old infrastructure. We have infrastructure that it's been developed 50, 60 years ago, and we're trying to look at new technology. I think that's another tool that we should lean into. I think that's the space where education, like the university and others, can help lean in and come up with different innovative solutions to address our infrastructure issues in multiple ways.
I'm glad someone brought this up, because, you know, the TMT remains sort of the gorilla in the room on the Big Island. It's hanging out there. I think that we heard recently that they might try again. It was a terrible experience for the Ige administration and for every Big Island politician. So, I mean, Dan from Email, position on TMT. Susan Lee Loy, how do you feel? Is that an economic development opportunity for your island?
It could be, but I think there are more pressing issues. I think when we start solving for housing, Hawaii County needs 10,000 homes in the next 10 years. We haven't developed housing for any families with kids with special needs. We're talking about bigger issues, and although it could be an economic opportunity, there's still more pressing needs, closer fires that we have to address.
Yeah, I don't think TMT is an economic opportunity at all. I think if we're going to look at this from a telescopic point of view, pun intended, you know, it's not a priority to build TMT, but there is a big elephant in the room, or a gorilla in the room, as you stated. And, you know, so we need to talk about, you know, determining that access road jurisdiction and investing. Because investing in astronomy moving forward until that issue is figured out, it's kind of in a holding pattern. And so we're in this transitional period between how things used to be done and how things are going to be done.
Well, speaking of how things are done traditionally, tourism and over-tourism has been an issue on the Big Island as well. Is there a moderating process that needs to happen for tourism, or are you folks pretty much satisfied with the level of tourism on the Big Island?
I'll jump in.
Sure.
I do think some of the concerns that we have around tourism, especially in Hilo, has a lot to do with the Waikea Peninsula. We don't have enough rooms, which has pushed people into short-term vacation rentals, which is bowing out and pushing on our community parks that are supposed to be used for community. And until we can get a grip on tourism, on short-term vacation rentals, and build up the peninsula and make that the hotel destination that it should be, we're going to continue to have problems.
As a council member, you would know this. How big an issue is short-term rentals on the Big Island?
For us?
More on the Kona side, right? I mean...
Yes, on the Kona side, but because Hilo and the Waikea Peninsula and the neglect that we've had with DLNR, we've seen a number
of... the Hilo Lagoon Hotel and that whole area there. On the
Naniloa, Hilo Hawaiian.
I stayed there in middle school when I was in the band, I remember.
And we've made some gains, right? issued an emergency proclamation. Department of Land and Natural Resources has stepped in. They're taking down Uncle Billy's, and it's really begin to transform that area.
Do you agree with the legislature's move to make it easier to convert short-term rentals? Do you think that the Big Island should move in that direction of converting more short-term rentals to long-term rentals?
I do, because I think we need to provide housing for our people. I mean, our people need to have housing first. That's the bottom line. Housing shouldn't be a return on investment as much as it should provide a home for people who need to stay here.
I got a good question from Tony in Mountain View, because I'll probably know all these people, so it's the Big Island. Let's talk coffee. Did the coffee bill passed by lawmakers this year go far enough in terms of how much Hawaii-grown coffee needs to be in a bag of coffee beans? Let's put that in the context of agriculture. I mean, Tanya, Aynessazian, agriculture is huge on the Big Island. Does it need some more help? And in what way to
Absolutely. I mean,
thrive?
Agriculture and food independence is a public health issue.
And the Big Island is the seat of that in a lot of ways.
Absolutely the seat of it. Nutrition lies at the core of our health too, and locally sourced produce lies at the core of our health too, right? So we want to invest in agriculture, and we want good systems. We want clean water. And in regard to the coffee growing, we want to make sure that our labeling is appropriate, and should not be watered down, because it's expensive, to grow on our islands. You know what I mean? But it's worth it.
And the coffee's they're really pretty up there. But talk about coffee and agriculture.
Yeah, I think similarly, I think we need to protect our farmers. I think we need to protect that industry. I think there's so many opportunities around agriculture, not only to feed us, but our ornamentals as it relates to our flowers and foliage. I'd love to see more help around a slaughterhouse that's really needed on Hawaii Island, and especially as for our hunters, that they have places where they can do their own hunting, fishing, and gaming, but have areas in which they can provide food for their families, but also subsistence. I think those are keys.
Your primary, I understand, I did a couple of, looked into this issue, and there's one big slaughterhouse, and then there's another smaller one. But in terms of the smaller kinds of animals, pork and goats and deer and stuff, there really isn't much there.
There isn't much, and I think there's opportunities with mobile slaughterhouses that could actually help communities, hunters, fishers, any of our gamesmen, that they would have a place to take their game.
You ever thought about that?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with that.
You guys are agreeing too much. Yeah. I have to find something that divides you. So invasive species is also a big issue on the Big Island. I mean, has the state stepped up enough to deal with invasive species?
Not on Hawaii Island. I mean, I'm sleeping here and I'm not hearing koki. I don't know about you guys, but, it's silent. So, we do have a lot. We have fire ants, little fire ants. No, they haven't. That's the answer.
Yeah, they haven't. I think one other area that needs more attention is our inspectors. I think that's how so many of these invasives ended up coming in. So I think there's opportunities there, but I also like to see a more robust program back at the county as it relates to our green waste. I think there's opportunities where we're not going to be able to, or we should be able to take that soil from our green waste and put it back into our community.
I do need to touch on something that's been controversial in the newspaper for you in particular, and you were challenged on your residence, and it got resolved, but and you filed for another seat, another district. And I'm going to put this question to you more. Do you think it's an issue where Ms. Lee Loy is registered?
Well, I don't think that's up to me to decide. So, I think
but
that's...
would you criticize her for that?
No, she's been a councilwoman for, 4 terms. So she's been serving all of Hilo, really. The decisions she's made have affected all of Hawaii Island. So I'm sure that's not where my point of contentions would be with Sue if we talked long enough.
Okay. Do you want to say anything about that controversy before we close?
No, I really do appreciate the decision from the Office of State Elections. My campaign has always been about integrity and honesty, and getting that decision really was just the cornerstone to back up what I stand for.
You know, are you folks both planning to be full-time legislators? Let me start with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it takes that at this point. You know, we have a lot of things happening. There's a lot of reading involved. There's a lot of relationship building, and that takes time. There's a lot of, you know, sticking in the community, and we're going back and forth. And I do that right now for my work. So, I mean, it takes a toll. So, yeah, absolutely.
It's hard work, though. These districts are big, right? I mean, campaigning is difficult, and staying in touch is difficult. So how do you plan to do it?
Well, definitely, I think I already have a great network, you know, between the administration, our council members, but also with our senators who actually came from the county council, like Senator Tim Richards and Senator Drew Kanuha. I think there's a cadence when it comes to policy and policy work. The legislature starts, they do their work, then the county does their work. And then we learn the lessons, we get new policy together, and then we start again come January. I think I hit the ground running. I do intend to work hard. There's gaps as far as things I need to learn at the state level.
I'm going to stop you because I want to give Tanya, Yamanaka, and Aynessazian one last word in. You got about 20 seconds.
I love community theater. I love to be present with people. I love to talk about the issues because I do think that I get inspired from the people. And the more people you talk to, the more ideas that you have, and the more you get to the real issues. And I think that's really important. There's a big difference between a positional power, and having presence in a community.
Well, I appreciate that. Both of you seem to be having fun running, and so I wish you both luck. Thank you so much. And mahalo to you for joining us tonight. And we thank our guests, the Democratic candidates for State House District 2, Susan Lee Loy and Tanya, Yamanaka, and Aynessazian. Next week, we will feature Democratic candidates for State House District 20, which covers part of Kaimuki, Kapahulu, and Diamond Head. Please join us then. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha. Is that the fastest?
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaii are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live.